guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to do an update to a very popular video I covered about 3 weeks ago, which is titled, Newlywed thought she got away with the world's biggest crap test, and then her husband showed her. And guys, as a recap, that's all about the young guy who got married ridiculously early. I think he's 23 years old, to a gal whose actions have proven she has a maturity level of a 14-year-old, and I'm being generous with that. And all about how he'd been married less than a year. He's not in college. He's doing well for himself. I forget exactly what he does. He went on a business trip. And his wife wanted to go along. And he said, no, honey, we can't afford to have both you come because they're only paying for me. The money we have in the emergency fund is for emergencies only. This guy's very careful with money, which is very smart. And she wasn't happy about that, but fine. Went on the trip, and mysteriously this woman kept tracking him down and hitting on him, putting the moves on him, all that. And got to the point that it was getting absolutely ridiculous. And long story short, he comes home to find out that that woman that was hitting on him, putting the moves on him, was a friend of his wife. And they cooked up this idea that the wife was going to send her friend to come see him on the business trip and pretend to be interested and test to see if he's loyal. Freaking crazy. And drained the entire emergency fund to fund her flight out there, hotel, food, all that type of stuff. And as you can imagine, this guy is just beyond furious and disbelief that his wife would behave in this way. I mean, where the hell's the trust? Drain the emergency fund, which is very important to him. This guy's very sensible with money. And she's acting like it's no big deal. And naturally, he's pissed off about the whole thing. And he wanted to know my advice because he's new to the channel. And you guys were great. There must have been 1,000 comments pretty much saying what I was saying is, she's a child, she's immature, get out of this. It's less than a year you've been married, get an annulment if you can. But he had these ideas like, well, maybe if I give her another chance, I make her pay back the money and get rid of those friends. And I said, it's not going to work. But anyhow, here we are. I had to give you I had to do a recap, guys. It's been a few weeks. Here we are on to part 2, where he's going to, well, you're going to see how things go. Now, let's just say we were all right, and he knows it. And he's going to respond to some questions and get into a story that is quite a doozy with her. But don't you worry, before you even think about leaving, our guy handles things right. Now, I want to mention early on that this is a long freaking update. So this is going to be spread out between part 2, which you're watching here, and part 3 later. So a lot of you guys lose your minds when I leave you on a cliffhanger. So I'm letting you know now. So if you want to come back later when part 3 is coming up, no problem. But otherwise, I'm going to do this now, and then 2 hours after I post this, part 3 will be up. And it's definitely worth your time for some good Friday entertainment. So, he says here, hello SSM. It's Clueless, the guy whose wife set up the whole shit test while I was on a business trip. Thank you for taking the time to read my email and offer up your thoughts and advice. Also, thank you to everyone who left a comment. Last time I checked, there were over 1,100 comments, and I've attempted to read as many of them as I can. 1,100. You guys are awesome. This is really a great community. All over the world, you guys jump in and give your 2 cents. It's great. I appreciate that. So does this guy and all you guys out there. You told me to let you know if I have an update. Here it is. It's been a busy couple of weeks. A little background, first to answer your question regarding my finances and budgeting. There are some things in my background that are relevant later in the update. My parents divorced when I was 9 years old. One day there was a change in my dad. He started drinking more, and my parents, who rarely argued, were getting into shouting matches. One particular day, my dad came home and went into his office/den and shut the door. He came out a short while later, and the next thing I knew, my mom was yelling at him. He started yelling back. I have a sister who is 1 year younger than I am. It would upset her greatly when they fought, so I took her outside to play in the front yard. On the rare occasion my parents are getting into big arguments, my sister would start crying. I would take her out of there too. It's a brotherly thing. We're protective. It wasn't too much longer that my dad stormed out of the house, got in his car, quickly backed out of the driveway, and when he left, he peeled out down the street. That was the last time he set foot in our house. It's amazing how women can drive guys to, I'm out of here, you know. We went inside. My mom was on the kitchen floor fixing dinner. She was upset. You could tell she'd been crying, but wasn't crying now. Her lip was also swollen. She told us she accidentally bit it. A few weeks later, we started attending church. She didn't bite her lip. It happened some other way. The second time we went, we sat in a pew next to a guy named Mike. Afterwards, Mike took us all to lunch. A couple months later, our house was sold and we moved in with Mike. About a year later, Mom and Mike were married. Oh, for God's sakes. So we don't know what went down, as of this point, went down with his mom and dad. Whether his mom made him crazy and he left, Mom made him crazy and, which, guys, you should never do because for multiple reasons, even though it's certainly tempting and, your blood's boiling. Not a good way to go. But off she went and found Mike, a single mom with 2 kids. I didn't see my dad again until I was 13 years old. Oh, man. We don't know what went down with your mom and dad, but still your dad should have been there for you and your sister. My sister and I went for a week to see our grandparents, Dad's parents. The second day he showed up and stayed the rest of the week. He apologized and said he tried to see us more. He said that he'd been fixing things, but didn't explain what those things were. Twice a year we'd go visit our grandparents and we would see Dad then. After that, they were occasional visits where he would stop by and pick us up for an afternoon. There were birthday and Christmas gifts and a guaranteed phone call every week. When I was 16, he picked me up one Saturday and he and I spent the afternoon together. He told me I was old enough to understand what happened. Dad worked as a realtor back when he and Mom were still married. Before the real estate bubble burst in 2008, my dad had purchased a couple of homes with the intent of flipping them and making some quick cash. Uh-oh, I can see where this is going. The market crashed before he could complete the renovations. He was left holding some serious debt. He said the loans were 3-year notes with a balloon payment and the option to renew the loan. They were interest-only payments, and he said he could just barely not make the payments. So he was dipping into savings each month. When the notes came due, renewal wasn't an option due to the value of the properties dropping and what he owed. He was way underwater. To cope, he started drinking. The night above, he realized he was going to lose not just those properties, but the family and home too, since he borrowed against it to come up with the down payments. He came home, had a few drinks to muster some courage, and then went and told my mom. Holy shit. You should... That's the thing. I'm all for investing. I'm all for risk-taking, but being smart about it. And putting up your home to get down payments on properties, thinking things are always going to go up, that's fucking stupid. That is risking too much. I don't blame your mom for being pissed. And this is his dad telling him this. He said it also turned out my mom had been having an emotional affair with Mike, which my dad found out about during this fight. He drunkenly confronted her. So it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg here? Was she having an affair with Mike all along? Or was obviously Dad was stressed out because of all what was going on and started drinking, and then she started having an affair with Mike, setting the stage for her to monkey branch to the safe guy. Who knows? But both were in the wrong. She started yelling and said some unkind things, but probably well-deserved things, and he turned backhanded her. He stormed out of the house, sped off, and promptly ran a stop sign and T-boned another vehicle, injuring both occupants. Oh my God. And so luckily they were both fully recovered. I didn't see him for a couple years because he served some jail time for DUI and spent the rest of it in and out of rehab trying to get cleaned up and cope with what he referred to as his failed life. Man, what a freaking tragedy. I'm sorry, man. That's why you didn't hear from your old man. He was in jail. Mike and my mom didn't have the best marriage, in my opinion. By the way, guys, we're getting to the story here. He's showing his background here, why obviously he married young and all that. They just seem to be living under the same roof. I see my dad from time to time, but I'm not super close to him. For my 18th birthday, my dad paid me to take Dave Ramsey's financial freedom class at our local church. My dad explained to me that he had not been so greedy and leveraged them so far. Things would have turned out much better for our family. He told me this would teach me to not make the same financial mistakes that he made and to avoid debt. I remember my mom and dad being a fun-loving couple. I long for those days that will never return. So, guys, this is why this guy is dead fucking serious about money, having an emergency fund, building for the future, and you can't do that with a gal that just throws away money like it's nothing. It's never going to work. And not to mention its maturity level of fucking 14-year-old. Dad said money is a leading cause for marital problems, and if I secure the finances, that eliminates one thing that will cause problems in my life. He also told me if your outflow exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall. When I finished the course, my dad told me that he was proud of me and gave me a check for $5,000. With that, I opened a Roth IRA with $500, put $1,500 into emergency fund, gave 10% to charity, and with the remaining, I used it and the proceeds for the sale of my crappy car to purchase a less crappy car. Good for you, man. I'd love to know what happened with those properties your dad had and all that, and how, amongst many other things, but okay, that's not the point of this whole story. And obviously your dad got his life back on track, and that's great. He insisted you take that course and learn some things. Very good. He told me not to tell my mom or sister about the check. When my sister turned 18, he sat her down and told her the same thing about money. She went to 2 of the classes and decided it wasn't for her. Her $5,000 check had been waiting for 4 years, and it's hers when she completes the class. She just doesn't know about it. Well, maybe you'll get that $5,000. I was working a menial job back then, but I took the budgeting to heart and made a budget each month with my paycheck. I budgeted gas, auto maintenance, eating out, entertainment, and I put a few bucks into the Roth each month. Since then, I've taken it one step further, and I always live on last month's wages. For example, my paychecks for September will go in the bank and sit there until the end of the month while I will create a budget for October with that money. That way, when I make a charge to the Visa, not only have I already the budget to do that, the money is sitting there in the checking account waiting to pay it off. The day the credit card statement closes, I pay it in full. It's worked well up until now. Yeah, up until your wife. Side note, I've heard Dave Ramsey once say the following: if cats were the leading cause of divorce, I would find a way to keep the cats out of the marriage. I only know that because I heard you are a cat person. I'm a cat person as well. Well, shout out to the cat brothers out there. We love our cats. So anyhow, guys, that's some background of why he is the way he is with money, and obviously why he rushed into a marriage to make up for the, crappy family life that he had. But when a guy rushes into a marriage to make up for things, bad things come from that. Now, on to the update. Thank you for listening. He says, the shit test from Amy took place the week of August 26th. I wrote you on September 1st, confronted Amy on the 2nd, and you read my letter on the 5th. So before you smack me for not listening to you, I was kind of on my own at the beginning of the couple days until I got your advice and had already taken a messed up course. Here's what took place. I phoned my mom and talked to her on the morning of September 2nd before going home and talking with Amy. My mom told me Amy just made a mistake and we'd worked through this. There you go. Taking advice from a woman, I tell you not to do that, especially your mom. Do you think your mom wants you guys to divorce? Of course not. She's probably hoping for grandkids. And guess what? Your mom was a cheater. Emotional affair, my ass. I'm sure there's more than emotions going between her and Mike. Well, and I get things were a mess with your dad and all that, but still. We were young and don't know what we were doing, and it's part of learning and growing with each other. Amy loves and trusts me and really misses me. No real help there. No, she doesn't trust you, because if she trusted you, she would have pulled that bullshit. And that doesn't talk about how she pissed away your freaking emergency fund. And yeah, you gotta be psycho about money, particularly early on, guys, because the younger you are and you put money away in investment vehicles that'll grow over time, the more it'll grow over time. The earlier you are and start putting away money and investing it properly, the easier it'll grow with time. And many of you guys know what I'm talking about here. I then tried to phone my dad, but he was unavailable. Well, he should pick up the fucking phone. He did phone me 2 days later. My dad cautioned me about getting married so young. Aha! I didn't listen to him. Smack! Well, you should have. Maybe we were closer, his words would have meant more, but I can't say for sure. When I told him we were in love, he said that was good, but it wouldn't be enough. He said anyone can be married when things are easy, but when the storm comes, you both have to be willing to put in the work. I didn't understand what he meant, but I do now. The great thing about you being a young man and going through this shit is you can learn and lick your wounds and move on and be much wiser. But yeah, it's easy. Things can be great during the easy times, but when the tough time comes, that's something else. When I explained the shit test, his response was, this is why you should have waited. He told me this was the storm, and now we would have to get dirty to make it work. If we both didn't put the effort in, it's pointless. He said she was in the wrong, but good luck getting her to understand. Yeah, she's not going to understand. She's a fucking idiot, your wife. I didn't bother with Mike. He and I are not close at all. I appreciate him supporting us during those years, and I have told him so, but he was lacking as a surrogate father. The one thing I did learn from him was his conservative values. He openly speaks out against the DEI woke crowds and all things that the left embraces. I will also throw out there that my mom, who is a former teacher, homeschooled my sister and I. I did take some high school classes like wood and metal shop and a few other hands-on type of classes. I attempted to play football in my 11th and 12th grade years, but I spent most of my time on the bench. I thought you said on the beach, on the bench. After talking to my mom, I headed home. When I walked in the door, Amy rushed to me, trying to hug me. Here we go. Here we go with the love bombing. She knows she's in the doghouse, so she's going to try to charm or cry her way out of it. Her eyes were red. There's a fucking surprise. Like she'd been crying. I held off, and that made her tear up. That's when I noticed her parents were sitting on the sofa. Oh, great. Gee, I wonder whose side they're going to be on. It turns out to be me versus Amy and her parents. The confrontation was an oxymoron at best, pretty ugly. Immediately, her parents started at me. Amy made a mistake. She's sorry, she's young, and unsure what she's doing. Bullshit. If your daughter is old enough to get married, she's old enough to understand what she was doing, and there are consequences for her crazy psycho lunatic actions. She loves me so much. I'd already planned out what I was going to say, but I was totally derailed by her parents being there. That's why they're there. That's why she didn't tell you they were coming, to blindside you. Because she's smart enough to know that your guy will be prepared for such a thing. I would try to say something only be interrupted or talked over. No. Not in your house, not in your apartment. If you're in their house, that's one thing bad enough. In your place, they're interrupting you and talking over you. I don't care if you're 23 or 24. I need to get past this, according to them. Also, how could I leave her for 2 days with her not knowing where I was and what was going on? The poor girl had been a wreck. If I was going to be married, this is not how a husband acts. Oh, really? I'm sure you two are the model couple. You don't come here telling me what's what. I've been a good husband to your fucking daughter here. Of course, they threw the biblical verses in there too. The woman is the weaker vessel and is supposed to be protected by the husband. Is that so? Because I beg to differ that the narrative nowadays that the woman is not the weaker vessel and she's strong and empowered and blah, blah, blah. But when it's convenient, all of a sudden she's the weaker vessel that's supposed to be protected by the husband. Yeah. How interesting that's being used here. I'm supposed to honor and cherish her, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, she's not honoring and cherishing me through that whole stunt she pulled. I asked them, what about the wife giving reverence to the husband? Is that in there too? They inform me Amy is young and inexperienced in life and she's bound to make some mistakes. Then why the fuck did she get married? This isn't Puritan times when she would have gotten married at 13. They managed to beat me down pretty hard. I began to question my justification for being upset. I was starting to wonder if I blew things out of proportion, maybe I was in the wrong. Well, with my channel with 1,100 dudes all over the world, all telling you pretty much the same thing, who aren't biased like her parents, no, you're not in the wrong. But I understand you're young and you're having people that up until this point you probably respected, because you respected elders and all that, and they're your in-laws, and them coming at you blindside, I can understand. Plus you just got back from your mom's house, and your mom was pretty much saying the same fucking thing. When I did finally get a chance to speak, I attempted to tell Amy that there was going to be some changes. My demands came out as nervous suggestions. That was a bad idea. The confidence I arrived with had been withered down to nothing. Well, that was on purpose by her parents. I told Amy I wanted her to restore the money spent. That's when Amy's dad handed me a check. Her dad informed me he was going to cover it. I didn't want to pay it. I wanted Amy to. What's that going to teach her? Right? The mom and dad are always going to bail her out, that she can get away with her bullshit. Daddy! That turned into more of a verbal beatdown. That turned into more verbal beatdowns. Amy works hard taking care of the house and is starting school. With school starting, she can't be expected to be working more. Bullshit. Plenty of people watching this went to school full time and had jobs during college. I did when I went to school. Many of you did. We went back and forth, and I tried to lay down some of the other boundaries I thought of. I said I didn't want her to go back to school until the money was paid back, and she shouldn't be taking on more student loans. That got them in an uproar again for holding her back and delaying her education. You know, bro, I guess I should have said it earlier. You should have said to them when they started interrupting you, Mr. and Mrs. such and such, If you don't, you're in my apartment with my wife. I'm a married man. I'm a fucking adult here. If you're going to come here telling me what's what, interrupting me, if we're not going to have a conversation here, then you can leave. The door is right there. Your name isn't on the lease. You're not paying the fucking rent. You don't disrespect me. They may not like it, but at least the father probably on some level would have respected you. You should have been taken, but I get you're worn down. When I brought up separating our money and removed her from the credit card, they blew a gasket. I was being unreasonable and controlling. There you go. We were married and are one in God's eyes. We do not live separate lives as a married couple. This encounter went on for over 3 hours. Oh my God. He never should have tolerated that, man. I wouldn't tolerate 3 fucking minutes of that shit. But then again, if I was your age, 23, and the girlfriend at the time, I probably would have been worn down too. So, you're learning. I'm not sure how it happened, but they beat me down enough that I agreed I was not going to change anything. Amy and I kissed and made up, and we were going to get on with our lives. Smack away, my friend. Yeah, hang on. Smack, smack, and there are dudes smacking you all over the fucking world right now. But don't worry, our guy will come to his senses. But what he went through, that could happen to a lot of young guys out there. I was mostly wiped out and felt like a whipped puppy. I had nobody in my corner, and how can I, as an inexperienced newlywed, counter this married couple who had raised 3 children? I guarantee her jerk-off parents aren't that happy. I just wanted to go into a dark room, curl in a ball, and cry. I didn't, though. Amy's parents insisted on taking us to lunch. I tried to decline, but not wanting another beating for that as well, I went along. Amy sat so close to me in the booth at the restaurant, she may as well have been sitting on my lap. Jesus, she might as well have given you a fucking hand job in front of her parents the way she's being so close to you. She was all lovey-dovey, hanging on my arm. She didn't want to let me go. That afternoon, when we got home, I just wanted a nap. But Amy was all over me, and again, we went to bed. Sex is always nice, but it felt off. The next morning, she sent me off to work satisfied, and again, when I got home that evening. I enjoyed the sex, but it was not feeling good about things, how they turned out. All of my concerns were dismissed. I laid in bed holding Amy on Tuesday night, feeling the same way I did that Friday when I left my steak at the bar. I was pissed off that I didn't assert myself more. Yeah, I'm not letting that go. You left a good steak because that crazy bitch was bothering you at the bar. Everybody, half the comment section, you left the steak behind? Yeah, your gut's telling you this whole thing is wrong. Wednesday at work, Jacob, my coworker, asked me how things went. I gave him the rundown. He told me that wasn't good and nothing would change if her parents didn't butt out and she didn't take some responsibility. Nothing's going to change, dude. In fact, things are going to get worse now. I told them I knew that, but they simply wouldn't listen to me. You also could have left, man. That's the other thing. First, they should fucking get out and mean it. Or you leave and call the cops. Cops will show them to the door. Because if I recall correctly, your name's on the lease, not hers. I believe that's what you mentioned in the first story. I got a bit of a pep talk from him and went home with plans to put Amy on the spot without her parents being there. There you go. She put you on the spot. Now it's your turn. When I got home that evening, we had a fight, but not due to what I wanted to talk about. On the coffee table was a bag and an open boot box. Amy had purchased a pair of knee-high leather boots. I questioned her about it, and she said she bought it with her money. I told her I thought we didn't have separate lives. We were one. We didn't have my money, and her money, it was our money. No, what was she made? He wrote this wrong, but the point is she bought fucking boots. I told her she just blew $1,800 on her stupid insecurities, and now it wasn't the time to buy what turned out to be a $250 pair of boots. She reminded me her dad gave us the money to restore the emergency fund, so it didn't matter if she bought the boots. She bought a pair of $250 knee-high black hooker boots, and she's like, hey, it was the emergency fund. Dad gave me the money. What'd I tell you? Things are going to get worse. Because now she knows you're not, in her mind, hey, I got him. Anytime things don't go the way I want, my parents will come over and yell at my husband. No more him trying to financially restrain me. There you go. No, that is a smack in the face on purpose. Here we are at the shit test. I told you they're going to continue. You cannot build wealth with someone like this. You cannot have a happy marriage or anything if somebody disrespects you. Not surprised, dude. Before we got married, we sat down with the pastor at church for a couple of premarital counseling sessions. One of the things that was covered was finances. He said that was good, and as a married couple, we need to be on the same page. I told him I budget, and we would continue to do so as a couple. Amy knew it was important to me. Before we were married, I told her she needed to work on a budget with her paychecks. I made her work one out, and I helped her with it. After being married, we have sat down and gone through our finances. I know for a fact her spending money didn't have $250 in it. She would have had to borrow it from the groceries, and in my eyes, she was thumbing her nose at my budget. That's exactly what she was doing. It was a giant fuck you. She did that on purpose. She knew exactly what she was doing. Because she's thinking, hey, like I said, he caved. He caved to me. He caved to my parents. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Nope. I was seeing red. Not at Amy. Well, yes, at Amy. But mostly at her parents. They removed all accountability from her. Yep, but so did you by going along with it. I get you were worn down, but you did, man. I gotta tell you that. I told her she was going to return the money and need to repay the emergency fund. She started crying and told me I was being unfair. You fucking child. She said she just made a mistake and it's been fixed and I needed to move on. No, she did not make a mistake planning that whole thing when her friend was testing him on the work trip and spending all their emergency fund money. That's not a mistake. That's a well-calculated thing. It's fucking psycho. I told her we can't move on until she grows up and takes responsibility for her actions. She did not like being told to grow up, but it's the truth. I stated she will return the boots tomorrow. They were not in the budget. She can save for them. Oh boy, here we go. A woman and her shoes. She was going to need to learn to live within our budget. I told her it was necessary to get a full-time job for now, and if she wants to continue school, she can earn the money and not take on debt. This ended with more arguing, her crying, and running in the bedroom and slamming the door. Oh, one of those, huh? Slam! I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Bitch, I'm going to fucking Bruce Lee kick that door and you don't open the fucking door. Thursday on the drive home, I got a text from Jacob. It said, SSM read your story. Aha. You needed me about that time, my friend. And more important, you needed the 1,100 comments from dudes all over the world. I listened to it on the drive home and sat in the parking lot in front of the apartment to finish it. Since then, I've listened to it 3 times to make sure I didn't miss anything and took some notes. Good, brother. You need me. Consider me your guardian angel. And the whole 1,100 comments from dudes all over the world as your team. When I got home Thursday, it was uncomfortable silence at dinner. I broke the silence and asked Amy if she started looking for more work. You said in the video it wasn't going to end. If I wasn't going to end it, it had to be no more Mr. Nice Guy. So that's what I did. I went on the offensive and started pushing Amy. She told me no with attitude. I told her she has to pay the emergency fund back, and again she reminded me of her dad's check. Yeah. This is like a little kid. Think about it. For all you parents out there, you know darn well with your kids, if they learn they can get away with shit with you, they're going to keep pulling crap and testing the fuck out of you and disrespecting you. They need to know you don't fuck around with mom and dad, or there's going to be hell to pay. I told her she was going to return the money and would be explained to them that she needs to take accountability for what she did. I asked her if she returned the boots. She told me she couldn't because she already wore them outside. When I got home the previous day, the boots had not been worn outside. The soles were clean. She did this intentionally to keep them. Clearly, I was dealing with a child throwing a tantrum. Are you comparing a young gal to a child? Behaving like a child? Huh. Yes, they do behave like children. I went off on her. This just upset her more, and she got from the table, ran to the bedroom crying, and locked the door. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. I heard what you said, and I could clearly see this wasn't going to work. I already started down the road I was on, so I decided I would try to get her to understand and take things seriously through the weekend. Good luck trying to explain logic to her pea-brain emotional jackass mind. I had zero faith in her and knew I was just beating my head against the wall. You might as well beat your head against the wall than try to reason with her. It would be less painful, frankly. When I pushed for an annulment, I could always say I tried, but she wasn't interested in being grown up and fixing things. The lock on the bedroom door was just a simple interior lock, so I used a small screwdriver to unlock the door when I wanted to go to bed. She told me to get out. Hey, it's my apartment too. I'm on the lease. I told her my name was on the lease. I was sleeping in my bed that I bought, in my bedroom that I pay rent for, and if she didn't like it, she could go sleep on the couch. She slept on the edge of the bed as far from me as possible. Bro, I too have had girlfriends and I've had girlfriends I've lived with in my history. Yes, guys, I have. And let's just say when there were disagreements, and I always had a king-size bed because I want fucking room. And just like he described with a girl, as close to the side of the bed as possible when she was pissed off at me. Yep. I told her she was being a child, and she told me to shut up. I told her that's how a child responds when they are in the wrong. On Friday, I got home from work and told Amy we were going to see her parents. Good for you, man. That whole parent thing left a lot of guys shaking, but you're like, nope, I'm going to confront this head on. She asked why, and I told her. I would explain when we got there. We sat down in the living room with her parents, and I pulled out an envelope out of my back pocket with $100 bills in it. It was the $1,800 her dad gave us. I tossed it on the coffee table. Her dad asked me what it was, and I told him. He said he wasn't going to take it. I told him he didn't have a choice. Amy started to argue. I heard your voice say, and I heard your voice say, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Bro, that took balls. Go to the parents' house. Whoosh. I'm proud of you. I'm sure that wasn't easy. I turned to her and sternly told her to shut up. Funny thing, she was so shocked at how I was talking to her, it did exactly shut her up. Her dad told me there was no need to get nasty. I ignored him and tried to explain to him that if he covers this for her, she learns nothing except dad will bail me out. Exactly. After a bit of arguing, I finally said, this is a bunch of bullshit. If you want to enable your daughter and not hold her accountable, then she can be your problem. My man. Force is strong with this one, guys. Her dad tried to tell me not to speak that way in his home. As her mom gasped in her hand and went to her chest to grasp some pearls that weren't there. I got up and walked to the door, headed for the car, and drove off without Amy. She called me about 90 seconds after I left and told me to come back. I told her if she wanted to act like a child, then she could stay there and be bottle fed by her parents. I then hung up on her. She called back twice, but each time I answered the call and then immediately ended it. I didn't want voicemails from her. Good for you, man. See, guys, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Look what his nice guy shit got him. Now he's laying down the law. That took balls going to her house, her family's house, and doing that. I'm proud of you. Amy's parents brought her home a short while later, and when they came in, I told them they needed to leave. There you go. Amy said they're her parents, so they can come in. I told them they're not helping things. They need to butt out, and they needed to leave. I told Amy, my home, my rules. If she didn't like it, then she can leave too. Her mom said Amy needed her there, to which I sternly and in a bit of a raised voice said, butt out. Good for you, man. No more Mr. Nice Guy. There was about 20 seconds of silence while her dad and I had to stare down. When he saw I wasn't going to budge, he tugged his wife's arms and turned to leave. There you go. Look what happens when you stand up for yourself, gentlemen, when you act like a fucking man. I'm sure inside he was shaking. I'm sure he was nervous. Her mom says she wasn't going to leave Amy with this maniac. I spoke up and said, if she doesn't want her to be here, she can leave. Amy was crying, and in the end, they left and Amy stayed. I'm proud of you, dude. And we're not even done yet. After her parents left, Amy told me, I was being a jerk. I just smiled and said, no, I'm trying to help you learn what you did is not acceptable and will not be tolerated, but you don't want to accept that. She told me she made a mistake, and she's young and doesn't know what she's doing. Not knowing what you're doing, my ass, you knew exactly what you were doing. Buy that $250 pair of boots to rub it in my nose, and you knew what you're doing all the other shit. Don't give me that crap. No accountability, guys. I told her I kept hearing that, so maybe she was too young to be married and we should end it. That put her in a panic, and she started crying again. My God, you're going to need a fucking canoe or a raft for your apartment because it's going to be flooding with the tears in there. Jesus Christ. I told her, and make this as brief as possible, but here's basically what I told Amy. She damaged our relationship, and she was going to have her parents fix it. That included coming clean with all the details of this stupid setup while I was on my work trip. If she refused to do her part, I would be done with her and walk away. This brought a lot of tears and sobbing. She was going to replace the money she blew. She was going to sell her new boots for whatever she could and replace that money too. Ooh, the boots. There'd be no spending money for her. She was cut off until she would learn to be responsible. What you're saying there is completely warranted. But I guarantee it, 99% of young gals out there would say, what's the financial abuse or something like that? This would require her to work full-time, and there would be no school. School had started, and I told her she was going to drop all her classes, get the refund, and pay back the most current loan. Going forward, she would pay cash for her schooling, no loans. This was not a discussion. I was not talking to Amy. I was talking at her. I didn't care what she thought or what she had to say. I would cut her off when she would try to interject. Her mom phoned her 3 times while I was talking to her. Amy wanted to answer, and I told her if she did, we were done. The 3rd time her mom phoned, I answered the phone and calmly said, "Leave us alone," and hung up on the phone and then powered off the phone. Good for you, man. Remember, guys, this is not how this guy wanted his marriage to go. This guy was a good, loving, hardworking, providing husband. He was pushed into this position. And he has to handle this like a fucking child. But quite frankly, we all know where this is going to go. But he's going to go through the motions anyway of all this. So Amy tried to argue, but I shut her down each time. I told her she was left unattended for 6 days and couldn't handle the responsibility for 8 hours. So I'd be dictating everything going forward. No, that's not what I want in a relationship, but I figured if this marriage did work out, she'd have to grow up and learn to act responsible. I mentioned that I would kick her out in a hot moment if she pushed back. She cried and begged me not to leave her. I told her that was up to her. If I did, it would be her doing. I threw everything in her lap. I got a few details out of Amy about the setup. When I phoned Amy and told her what my plans were, Amy said she would call Susan and relay to them. That's how she knew where and when to find me. He's talking about the whole setup on that trip now. I explained to Amy that her bullshit test stressed me out and made my time at the company headquarters more difficult and hard to focus because I was being stalked by a crazy woman. I told her it was childish and immature. If she ever pulls something like that again, we were done. I told her I didn't care if it was 20 years from now and we had kids, I would walk away. Good. You learned. Women need to know they push you too far, regardless of the circumstances. You could have 99 goddamn kids. You're out that door and you're leaving. Frankly, if I had 99 kids, I'd be out the door too because I'd go crazy with 99 kids. I'd go crazy with 1 kid. But that's why I have 2 cats. But anyhow, yeah, they need to know. She still blamed things on her friend Jessica. Jessica, huh? Shocker. Jessica told Amy I was cute and handsome and women that would be all over me. For the record, I'm not, and no women paid attention to me. Just psycho Susan, Jessica convinced Amy she had to be sure. She could never fully trust me, and if we were apart even for a short time, I would go find another woman to hook up with. So this is what your wife is telling you that her friends put in her head. Maybe there's some truth to this. Possible. But at the end of the day, I'm guessing probably her friends are jealous of her that she has a husband. They want to fuck things up, or they want a wing girl or something, you know? But of course, your wife is blaming everybody but herself. Amy said she was panicked. She was afraid who I might meet there. I would never give Amy a reason not to trust me. She looked through my phone and my computer. Or she has looked through my phone and computer. He says, I don't look at porn. I don't use social media. I work and hang out with a couple friends. We're all nerds that play computer games, board games, and on the rare occasion go fishing. If I drink, I have a beer, nothing harder. I don't go to bars with friends or coworkers. I don't go to clubs. A more boring man would be hard to find. Right here. I'm fucking boring too. For me, it's pretty much business, the gym, getting together with friends on occasion, my cats, rinse, recycle, repeat. And I'm usually a 1 beer guy. I don't give a shit. I live in beautiful Florida. Beautiful Florida that I just dodged a bullet with the fucking hurricane. By the way, to all you guys out there dealing with various degrees of shit with this hurricane. I absolutely wish you all the best. I'm thinking about you. I got lucky down here. A lot of you guys have been inquiring. SSM, how are you doing with that hurricane? I got fucking lucky. Just some crazy wind gusts yesterday and 20 minutes of rain. A more boring man would be hard to find. Jessica suggested talking to Susan. She'd know how to handle this. When Susan came over, all she did was play into Amy's fears. Susan had offered to travel to go test me. From there, it went downhill, and Amy agreed to pay for her time in the trip. She said it put her mind at ease. I sarcastically congratulated her for destroying the trust in our marriage. So long as her mind was at ease, Amy resumed the crying. I don't know how she hadn't shriveled up and blown away in the wind with how dehydrated she must have been by now from all the crying. So many tears. Now she was the one who was beaten down. I figured this was a good time to drop the last bomb. I told her she was cutting off Jessica and Susan. And on that note, I'm going to end part 2 because we're looking at 40 freaking minutes here and I need a break. So guys, I will continue on with part 3 of this whole fiasco in a couple hours. And our guy here is ending part 2 on a high note, and this will continue. So stay tuned. I know some of you guys may have left in the beginning, but and I hope you may have changed your minds and came back. But yeah, our guy here is going to make us happy. I will see you then.